The conservative world has officially been rocked to its core, and this time, it's not a political scandal, not a debate about policy or ideology. It's something much more personal. It's betrayal, manipulation, and power plays, all exploding into public view because of one leaked private phone call that no one was ever supposed to hear. The call in question: a tense, emotional, and at times explosive conversation between Candace Owens and Erika Kirk, the wife of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. What began as a private exchange about miscommunication and rumors has now spiraled into one of the most talked about betrayals in conservative media history. The leak, which appeared online in the early hours of the morning, contains over 11 minutes of audio, allegedly capturing Candace Owens confronting Erika about manipulation, money, and behind-the-scenes control over her public image. And the internet has gone insane. The first half of the call sounds almost civil to women, long tied together by professional loyalty and shared proximity to Charlie's massive political empire, trying to clear the air. But then, the tone shifts. Candace's voice hardens. Erika grows defensive. And what follows is a raw, unfiltered argument about trust, power, and betrayal that lays bare the fractures inside one of the most influential conservative families in America. Within hours, hashtags like #ErikaLeak, #Candace vs. Kirk, and #Turning Point Tapes were trending worldwide. Screenshots of transcripts flooded Twitter and Telegram. Clips of Candace saying, "You used me, and then you erased me," were reposted over 5 million times in less than 12 hours. Conservative commentators were split. Some said it was proof that Candace had finally snapped, that she was burning every bridge left in her path. Others claimed the audio proved she'd been right all along, that Turning Point, under Charlie and Erika's control, had become a cult of personality, silencing anyone who questioned them. But the question everyone's asking now is, who leaked the call? Because sources inside Turning Point claim this recording wasn't an accidental release. It was deliberate, planned, timed to hit just days before a major conference announcement that could have reshaped the organization's future. And the deeper you go into the details, the context, the timing, the voices behind the leak, the more it starts to look less like a catfight and more like a carefully orchestrated civic power coup inside one of the most tightly controlled conservative machines in America. This isn't just about two women fighting. This is about the secret power struggles behind an empire built on loyalty, and what happens when loyalty turns into leverage. And if what insiders are saying about this leaked call is true, then this isn't just another headline. It's the beginning of the biggest implosion the conservative movement has seen in a decade. Because when the walls start cracking from the inside, the truth doesn't leak quietly. It explodes. To truly understand why this leaked phone call between Candace Owens and Erika Kirk hit so hard, and why it's threatening to collapse the very empire it came from, you need to rewind the story. Long before hashtags and live streams, long before the internet turned it into a war zone, there was something far simpler, a friendship that was never as equal as it looked. For years, Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk were seen as the crown jewels of the conservative youth movement. Two fiery voices in perfect sync, blending intellect and energy into the brand that became Turning Point USA. Charlie was the architect, the face of structure, donors, and strategy. Candace was the spark, the passion, the emotion, the viral magnet. They were magnetic on stage, sharp off stage, and utterly unstoppable when united. But what most people never saw was the woman behind the curtain, Erika Kirk. Charlie's wife. To the public, she was poised and polished, the quiet power beside the man who ran the machine. But to insiders, Erika was far more than that. She wasn't just the spouse of the CEO, she was the quiet enforcer. the curator of access, and the woman who decided who got too close to her husband's empire, and who didn't single quotes tie according to multiple sources close to Turning Point. Erika handled what they called the emotional politics of the organization. She wasn't on the payroll, but she wielded enormous influence, deciding which influencers got booked for events, which personalities were on message, and which ones, as one insider put it, needed to be managed. Candace was one of those personalities. In the early days, the two women appeared inseparable, posting photos together at Turning Point conferences, swapping compliments on Instagram, and appearing in group interviews that oozed sisterhood and solidarity. Candace once even said during a live stream, "Erika's like my sister. She keeps everything together when things get crazy." But behind the smiles, something was brewing. Several staffers later admitted that the relationship between Candace and Erika had always been tense underneath. One former communications coordinator told Politico, Candace was the voice of the movement, but Erika controlled the volume. She decided how loud Candace could get and when she needed to quiet down. At first, it was subtle, small disagreements about strategy, tone, and optics. Erika allegedly wanted Candace to be more polished and less reactionary. Candace, in turn, began to feel suffocated. "She hated being handled," said another insider. "She's not built to be managed." And that's when the real friction began. By mid-2022, Candace had become bigger than Turning Point itself. Her videos were breaking algorithmic records. Her commentary was pulling in millions of views across platforms, and major networks were offering her solo deals. But instead of celebrating her rise, sources claim Charlie and Erika saw it as a threat. "She outgrew them, and they hated it," said one staffer. She wasn't the understudy anymore. She was the show. That's when rumors of a divide started surfacing. Whispers that Erika had begun subtly campaigning against Candace behind closed doors. One ex-staffer recalled an internal event prep meeting where Erika allegedly said, "We need to remind people this movement isn't about one person. She's not the brand, Charlie is." That one sentence, according to those who heard it, marked the beginning of the end. Candace found out not directly, but through someone inside the organization who overheard Erika's words. It devastated her. She'd always believed the bond she had with both Kirks was rooted in loyalty. She'd defended them, championed them, and absorbed criticism for them. To discover she'd been reduced to a messaging liability cut deep, and according to one of her former producers, that wound never healed. She started pulling away after that, the producer said. She stopped attending Turning Point parties. She'd skip their dinners. You could feel the frost. Still, in public, Candace kept things civil. She smiled for photos, played the part, and refused to air the tension. But behind the scenes, the resentment was building like pressure in a boiler. Then, in January of this year, everything shifted. An anonymous leak to a small political blog claimed that Turning Point USA had been restructuring its influencer program, quietly cutting funding to several high-profile conservative creators, among them Candace Owens. The post didn't go viral immediately, but it caught fire once Candace liked a cryptic tweet that said, "It's always the people you protect the most who end up pulling the strings the hardest." Fans instantly began speculating. Was she talking about the Kirks? Her silence didn't help. Then, out of nowhere, she went live for nearly 2 hours on YouTube, addressing the state of conservative media. She didn't name anyone. But the message was clear. When people say they're fighting for freedom, but they start controlling who's allowed to speak, that's not leadership. That's ownership. Within days, Turning Point insiders leaked too. Conservative reporters that Candace was emotional and blowing things out of proportion. And that's where Erika stepped in again, according to someone with Knowledge of the situation. Erika allegedly reached out to Candace privately, saying she wanted to smooth things over. She said they should talk one-on-one. Off the record, woman to woman. Candace agreed. No assistants. No publicists, no staff. Just two women who once called each other sisters, trying to patch up years of suspicion and betrayal. The call was supposed to stay private. It was supposed to be a healing moment, an honest attempt to rebuild trust, but instead, it turned into a digital powder keg because, in that call, the one now circulating across every social platform, Candace didn't hold back. She accused Erika of manipulating Charlie behind the scenes, of turning allies into enemies, and of using her position to control narratives inside Turning Point for personal power. Erika pushed back, denying everything, but the recording captured it all. The raw emotion, to blame, the exhaustion of two women who'd been quietly at war for years. And somewhere in the middle of that heated, unfiltered confrontation, one of them, or someone in the room, was recording. By the next morning, that recording was out. No watermark. No source tag. Just 11 minutes of high-stakes conversation between two of the most powerful women in conservative media, now immortalized in the public domain. The audio was brutal. You could hear the hurt in Candace's voice when she said, "You sat there smiling next to me while you were telling people I couldn't be trusted. You used me to build this and then tried to erase me when I didn't fit the image." And then came Erika's cold reply. "You did that to yourself, Candace. You started believing you were bigger than the message." That was the line that broke the internet within hours. Clips of the call were everywhere, reaction videos, breakdowns, conspiracy threads, even parodies. Everyone had an opinion, and no one was holding back. Some called Candace brave for speaking truth to power. Others accused her of ego and hypocrisy. But no one, not even Turning Point's most loyal defenders, could deny that the audio sounded real. And once that line, "You think you're bigger than the message," hit social media, the floodgates opened. Staffers began leaking more. Influencers began whispering. And what had started as one private phone call now looked like a full-blown civil war inside the most polished conservative organization in America. And if you think the call was bad, wait until you hear what the second leak contained, because apparently there's another recording, one that didn't make it to the internet. Yet, and according to insiders who've heard it, it's not just emotional, it's incriminating. Within 24 hours of the leak, the political and influencer worlds were burning. The so-called private call leak had gone from niche gossip to a mainstream crisis, and the players involved were nowhere to be found. Candace Owens hadn't posted. Erika Kirk had shut down comments on all her socials. Charlie Kirk's show aired reruns. And yet, the world was dissecting every second of that 11-minute recording like it was a confession. But here's where things went from scandalous to catastrophic. There wasn't just one recording, there were two. The first was the conversation that went public, a call between Candace and Erika, laced with years of resentment, betrayal, and ego. But a second recording surfaced quietly, sent anonymously to multiple journalists and podcasters in an encrypted file labeled "Session to Private Follow-up." And this one? This wasn't just about personal grudges. This was about power, blackmail, and money. The new tape opened with Candace's voice calm, measured, and devastatingly direct. "You and I both know this isn't about friendship, Erika. It's about control. You control the optics. You control Charlie. You even control who gets to have a voice. You decide what's good for the movement, but what you really mean is what's good for your image." Then came Erika's reply, and her tone said everything. "You think this is about image? It's about protection. You think I haven't had to clean up your messes? You act like you're untouchable, like your words don't have consequences. Do you even know how many donors we almost lost because of you? The two went back and forth for several minutes, voices rising and falling like a storm, trying to decide whether to destroy or retreat. But then, at the 7:42 mark, the call hit a point no one expected. Candace dropped what sounded like a bombshell. "You leaked the first one, didn't you?" There was a long silence on the line. You could hear faint breathing, maybe from someone else in the room. Then Erika said quietly, "You're not as hard to read as you think." That one sentence detonated across the internet like a nuclear blast, because if Erika had leaked the first call, the one that made Candace look emotional, angry, and erratic, then this wasn't an accident. It was sabotage. NFLUENCERS began choosing sides. Conservative YouTubers started posting breakdowns titled "Candace Owens was set up" and "Erika Kirk's revenge." Screenshots from the tapes were captioned with quotes like "You're not as hard to read as you think," turning Erika's words into memes. But the story didn't stop there. Hours after the second leak, an anonymous Substack post surfaced under the name Insider_Truths. It claimed to have been written by a former Turning Point staffer who had watched the empire rot from the inside. The post accused Erika Kirk of running what it called the optics department, an internal influence network allegedly designed to manipulate the public perception of major conservative figures. According to the writer, Turning Point used private donor funds to pay for strategic message reinforcement, meaning influencers who followed the Kirk-approved narratives were quietly rewarded, while those who went rogue, like Candace, were starved of opportunities. The Substack article detailed late-night meetings, secret conference calls, and burner message channels where decisions about public figures were made based on alignment, loyalty, and obedience. And the receipts. They were brutal. Screenshots showed Erika allegedly giving instructions like, "We'll push Candace out through exhaustion, not confrontation. Freeze her out until she self-destructs." Whether those screenshots were real or fabricated didn't matter. The damage was done. Candace's fans exploded online, calling for boycotts, investigations, and resignations. Even moderate conservative commentators were demanding an internal audit of Turning Point's leadership. Meanwhile, Erika and Charlie stayed quiet. But silence only made them look guiltier. Then, suddenly, out of nowhere, a third recording appeared. This one wasn't leaked to journalists. It was posted directly to a YouTube channel that had 0 subscribers and no previous uploads. Titled Erika's Confession, Unedited Audio. It ran for nearly 19 minutes. The voice on the tape sounded exactly like Erika Kirk, but older, colder, stripped of the PR polish that audiences were used to. In it, she allegedly admitted that she'd taken action to protect Charlie's reputation from internal threats. Candace thinks this was about jealousy, she said in the recording. It wasn't. It was about control. She was unpredictable, and in this business, unpredictability kills donations. We couldn't let her keep making us look weak. So yes, I had people watching her. I had people recording her. Because you can't win a war if you don't know what your enemies are saying. That wasn't bad enough. At the 14-minute mark, the voice went even further. She doesn't realize she was never supposed to last this long. The plan was to phase her out in 2023 before she became a liability. But Charlie got sentimental. He thought he could manage her. He couldn't. That clip alone broke the internet. The entire conservative media complex went into a tailspin. Half of Turning Point's board members reportedly went on temporary leave. Sponsors began withdrawing quietly. Major networks canceled interviews. But the most shocking detail wasn't even in the tape. It was in the metadata. Digital analysts found evidence that the audio file had been uploaded from an IP address linked to, you guessed it, Turning Point, USA's own headquarters in Phoenix. That's when people realized something deeper was happening. This wasn't just about Candace and Erika. This wasn't even about Charlie. This was about a civil war inside the machine, and someone inside turning point was fighting back. The internet started calling the mystery leaker the Patriot. Hashtags like #FindThePatriot trended across Twitter, with fans comparing the unknown insider to Edward Snowden. But for Candace, the damage was more personal. She wasn't just vindicated, she was emotionally shattered. According to close friends who spoke anonymously, she'd told them, "I believed they were my family, and they were recording me the whole time." In a tearful podcast episode days later, she didn't mention Erika by name. But she said something that cut like a knife. When you've built your career on telling the truth, the deepest betrayal isn't when people lie about you. It's when the ones who called you sister turn you into content. That line became the quote heard around the world. Even her harshest critics paused. It was clear this wasn't just politics. It was heartbreak, televised, but as the dust began to settle, something strange happened. A new wave of leaks began surfacing, not from Erika or Candace, but from people inside turning point. Employees who'd stayed silent for years began posting cryptic statements like "We're told to delete the evidence and the recordings were just the beginning." One insider even posted a screenshot of a memo, allegedly sent from Erika's private account to staff, titled Containment Protocol. It read, "All communications mentioning Owens must be erased. All external inquiries should be redirected to legal. Remember, loyalty is survival." The memo spread like wildfire before it was scrubbed from the internet. And if that wasn't enough, a fourth audio clip leaked later that same week, this time capturing what sounded like Charlie Kirk himself, speaking to someone believed to be Erika. His voice, low and exhausted, said, "We can't fix this." The minute the call went out, it stopped being about optics. It became about exposure. She's going to bring the whole thing down. That single clip proved what everyone had suspected all along, that even Charlie knew this wasn't just gossip. It was an implosion. Gossip. It was an implosion. Now the question wasn't if Turning Point USA would survive. It was who would walk away from the wreckage still standing. Because if Candace Owens still had more recordings, or worse, proof of who was really pulling the strings behind the so-called Patriot leak, then this scandal wasn't over. It was only just beginning, and everyone was waiting for her next move. The next 72 hours felt like a political thriller unfolding in real time. Every hour brought a new headline, a new leak, a new accusation. It wasn't just chaos, it was surgical destruction. Turning Point USA, once the shining fortress of young conservative power, now looked like a crumbling castle devoured from the inside. But no one was prepared for what happened next, because the next leak didn't come from an anonymous whistleblower. It came from Candace Owens herself. After 3 days of silence, she finally reappeared, not on Twitter, not on YouTube, but in a live broadcast titled The Final File. Her followers had been waiting for this moment like doomsday prepper zealots, refreshing every platform in anticipation. When she went live, nearly 2.6 million people joined in the first 10 minutes. Candace sat in a plain white studio. No glam makeup, no production crew, just a microphone, a laptop, and a woman who had finally decided to burn the bridge behind her. "I wasn't going to do this," she began, her tone level but cold. "But since they decided to leak me, record me, and lie about me, I might as well show you what they didn't want you to see." The comment section exploded instantly. Thousands of messages poured in. "Expose them. We stand with you. Tell the truth." But she ignored them. She took a deep breath, clicked something on her laptop, and played the first audio clip. And the world stopped breathing. The voice on the recording was unmistakable. Erika Kirk. The audio quality was too sharp to be accidental. In it, Erika was speaking to another woman, someone whose identity remains unknown, but whose tone suggested high-level authority. Charlie's image is collapsing, Erika's voice said. If we let her, Candace, keep controlling the narrative, donors will walk. I've told him this is war now. She's not just emotional, she's dangerous. Then came the bombshell. If she keeps talking, we leak the fund files. We'll say it's her fault. She can't fight all of us. The live chat went insane. Thousands of messages per second, emojis flying, people screaming virtually through their keyboards. Candace didn't flinch. She let the tape play out. Erika's voice continued, almost calm. We'll tell the board she's gone rogue. Then we push the narrative that she's working with leftist media. That'll end her. Candace paused the recording, looked into the camera, and said quietly, "You wanted the truth. That's the truth." Then she pressed play again. What came next made even her critics fall silent. The audio switched to Charlie's voice, clear, unedited, recognizable to anyone who had ever heard him speak at a conference or on a podcast. "I'll handle Candace. Erika, don't get emotional. We built this platform. We decide who survives on it. If she thinks she can challenge that, she'll find out how disposable she really is." The audience erupted. Hashtags like #CharlieLeaked, #Erika exposed, and #FreeCandace started trending worldwide within minutes. Candace sat there calm as fire. They recorded me. They mocked me. They underestimated me. But I record too. She let out a bitter laugh, and unlike them, I didn't edit mine. Then she dropped the second tape. This one was worse. It wasn't just about internal politics, it was about money. Donor funds, influencer payouts. Private texts between Turning Point executives referring to controlled opposition budgets. "Keep the influencers loyal," one message read. Candace refuses to cooperate, reallocate her sponsorship deals to approved voices. Another message, allegedly from Erika, said, "She's replaceable. Every voice is replaceable when you own the microphone." Candace paused the feed again. She stared into the lens like she was looking through it, directly at Erika. "You don't own me," she said, "and you don't own the truth." That line went viral instantly, within hours. It became the rallying cry of what Twitter users started calling the #CandaceRevolta movement that wasn't just about her, but about every creator who felt controlled, silenced, or sidelined by corporate-backed conservative media. Across the country, young influencers started releasing their own stories accounts of NDAs, approved talking points, and threats of funding removal if they spoke out of line. One TikTok user posted, "I was paid to say things I didn't believe. I thought it was just strategy. Now I see it was control." Another admitted, "Candace told us this months ago. We didn't believe her. I guess we should have." Turning Point USA tried to respond quickly, releasing a 3-paragraph statement, calling the leaks misleading, illegally obtained, and digitally manipulated. But within an hour, independent tech experts had already verified the files as authentic. The damage was irreversible by nightfall. Major donors had publicly distanced themselves from the Kirks. News outlets that once hailed Charlie as the future of conservative youth were now publishing headlines like, "Turning Point in Crisis. Candace Owens exposes empire of deceit." Meanwhile, the Kirks vanished. Erika deactivated her Instagram. Charlie canceled his upcoming appearances. Their entire PR team went radio silent. But Candace, she wasn't done, because halfway through the live stream, she played one more file. This one wasn't a call. It was a video-grainy security footage, time-stamped from a Turning Point conference 2 years earlier. In it, Candace was seen leaving a private meeting room, visibly upset, while Charlie and Erika remained inside with a small group of executives. You could faintly hear Erika say, "We'll frame it as her walking away." She doesn't need to know we've already started the transition. The audience froze. The implications were staggering. Candace had been pushed out long before she even realized it. Her entire falling out with the organization wasn't spontaneous. It was orchestrated. Candace looked up from her desk, eyes fierce. They thought I'd never find out, but everything done in darkness eventually uploads to the light. The chat feed exploded with applause emojis, fire emojis, hearts, and endless support. She let the moment breathe, then delivered her closing blow. This isn't about me anymore. This is about every person who ever sold their soul for a platform that would delete them the moment they stopped being useful. This is what happens when loyalty becomes currency. And guess what? I'm done paying. The live stream ended abruptly after that. Within minutes, it had been clipped, mirrored, re-uploaded, and dissected across hundreds of channels. Memes flooded the internet. News networks scrambled for coverage. Legal analysts predicted lawsuits on a scale the movement has never seen. But the story didn't end there. An hour after the broadcast, a new anonymous post appeared on 4chan and Telegram, allegedly from someone deep inside the organization. The message was simple. Candace only showed half. The rest goes live at midnight. Panic swept the movement again. Turning point. Staffers reportedly fled the office in Phoenix after an internal system breach was detected. At 12 a.m. sharp, another video uploaded to a new YouTube channel titled TPUSA. Unredacted show, documents, emails, and most shockingly wire transfer records linking Turning Point. Donations to offshore marketing accounts tied to Erika Kirk's private consultancy firm. The total, over $4.3 million. Commentators lost their minds. If this is real, one political analyst said on Breaking Points, "We're talking about embezzlement, disguised as media strategy." The fallout was immediate. Federal watchdogs announced they were reviewing Turning Point's finances. Donors issued statements calling for Charlie Kirk's resignation. And yet, through it all, Candace remained quiet. No more posts, no comments, just silence. But late that night, a mysterious clip surfaced. Candace recorded privately, talking to someone off camera. They think this is the end. But it's just the first upload. She smiled faintly. The next one doesn't expose them. It exposes everyone. That single quote changed everything, because if this wasn't just about the Kirks anymore, it meant the rot went deeper, far beyond Turning Point, far beyond conservative media. The story was no longer personal. It was systemic, and everyone from politicians to pundits to influencers suddenly had a reason to be afraid of what Candace Owens might release next. The call had started as a private leak, but now it was a revolution. And the woman at the cantor of it wasn't backing down. The day after Candace's final file livestream, America woke up to a different kind of news cycle. This wasn't about Democrats versus Republicans anymore. This was about trust, manipulation, and betrayal inside a movement that had long branded itself as a beacon of moral clarity. From mainstream anchors to underground podcasts, everyone had the same reaction. Shocked. Fox avoided the subject entirely for the first 12 hours, airing endless reruns of old debates as if pretending the explosion hadn't happened would make it disappear. But the audience knew better. Twitter feeds were on fire. Telegram channels flooded with voice notes claiming to be inside TPUSA, all promising the next big leak. By sunrise, CNN, MSNBC, and even the BBC were covering the story as the Turning Point implosion. Headlines screamed across every platform. Candace Owens versus the Kirks, a war inside conservative royalty. Leaks expose a political control machine. Is this the end of Turning Point USA? Within 24 hours, the New York Times confirmed that the Federal Election Commission had opened a preliminary Inquiry into Turning Point's donor operations following. The alleged offshore payments seen in the TPUSA. Unredacted uploads, the right was in panic. Mowed every conservative content creator, even those who once swore they'd never pick. Size was forced to respond. Some stood by Candace. Others clung to Charlie and Erika, painting Candace as unstable, vengeful, or hacked. But that narrative collapsed fast when a verified tech investigator posted an hour-long YouTube breakdown showing that Candace's leaked recordings matched metadata from Turning Point's own internal servers. There was no hack. The receipts were real. That's when the backlash against Charlie and Erika became unstoppable. The fan uprising outside the digital bubble. Things got even wilder. In Phoenix, where Turning Point's headquarters stood like a symbol of conservative youth power, a crowd of over 2,000 fans gathered overnight. They weren't there to protest liberals or politicians. They were there to demand answers from their own side. Some held posters that read, "Candace spoke. We listened. No more scripted truth. The movement isn't a brand." Others wore black shirts emblazoned with a new slogan trending online. #WearUnredacted. A handful of ex-employees joined the demonstration, giving interviews to independent media outlets, claiming they'd been muzzled by NDAs and performance clauses that required message approval from Erika Kirk's office. One woman, who identified herself only as a former Turning Point media strategist, said through tears, "We thought we were fighting for truth." But truth was a product. Everything was planned. Every tweet, every headline, every reaction. Candace was the only one who stopped playing the game. Those words went viral. Even people who didn't like Candace Owens began admitting she'd exposed something deeper, the illusion of authenticity, celebrity, and political fallout. Didn't take long for the celebrity world to chime in. Kanye West, who had famously collaborated with Candace before their messy fallout, posted a single cryptic message. "They play God with people's minds," she warned them. That tweet alone gathered over 100 million views. Elon Musk replied with a single emoji. Meanwhile, conservative politicians scrambled to protect themselves from the fallout. Several governors and senators quietly deleted old Turning Point appearances from their feeds. Others issued generic statements about remaining focused on conservative values. But the damage was done. Candace's revelations had blurred the line between activism and corruption, and people were questioning everyone's motives. A senior political strategist, speaking anonymously to Politico, said it bluntly. She didn't just expose the Kirks, she cracked the entire conservative PR industry open. Everyone's terrified she released their names next. The Turning Point collapsed behind the scenes. Turning Point was imploding. According to internal leaks, dozens of staffers resigned within a week. Donor contracts were frozen. Affiliate companies began severing ties. Even Turning Point's official YouTube channel went silent after a mysterious internal security review. Then, just when it seemed the fire couldn't spread any further, someone leaked the internal board minutes. The document, dated 3 months before the first leak, revealed that Turning Point had already discussed contingency planning in the event of Candace Owens' public defection. One chilling line stood out. "Our only real threat is her credibility. Neutralize her, or she takes us down with her." It was the confirmation everyone had been waiting for. Candace had been right all along. The public turn says the chaos unfolded. Candace stayed mostly silent, except for one cryptic post on X. "You can't silence someone who no longer wants your microphone." The post shattered engagement records, hitting 80 million views in less than 6 hours. And while conservative leadership scrambled to recover, the people moved on. New channels, new movements, new voices began emerging under hashtags like #truth, reclaimed, and #free speech unfiltered. Young activists who had once looked up to Charlie Kirk as their hero were now rallying behind Candace, calling her the whistleblower of the decade. Even left-leaning commentators began grudgingly praising her. A segment on MSNBC described her as the unexpected disruptor no one saw coming. The woman who just did to the right what Edward Snowden did to the surveillance state. The irony was thick. For years, Candace Owens had been one of the most divisive figures in American media. Now, she was being called a hero by both sides. The Kirks break their silence a week after the first leak. Erika and Charlie Kirk finally resurfaced with a joint statement and a heavily produced apology video. Sitting side by side, looking tired but polished, Erika began, "We've made mistakes. We've trusted people we shouldn't have. And we've been betrayed by people we loved. But this has gone too far." Her voice trembled, but not enough to convince the public. The comments were brutal. Charlie followed up, "We'll take full responsibility for any internal mismanagement. But the personal attacks, the harassment, and the lies, that's not who we are. We've dedicated our lives to truth." But as he spoke, viewers noticed something strange. In the reflection of his desk, the faint glow of a phone screen showed a teleprompter app scrolling their lines. Within minutes, screenshots of the reflection were circulating everywhere. Scripted? Apology from the people who scripted the movement. One viral tweet read, "That clip alone erased any goodwill the Kirks hoped to. Recover. The industry implodes after the apology fiasco." Sponsors fled en masse. Major donors like the Ricketts family and Foster Friess Foundation quietly withdrew financial commitments. Fox began cutting Turning Point content from affiliate programming. By the end of the month, analysts estimated that the organization had lost over 65% of its funding. Even more stunning, several other right-wing nonprofits were dragged into the mess after. The Archive, a second data dump credited to The Patriot, appeared online. It contained cross-referenced payment records showing that Turning Point had coordinated ad spending with AT, leased for other conservative media firms that claimed to be independent. The revelations were devastating. Suddenly, Candace's earlier claim, "They don't spread truth, they manage," it didn't sound like paranoia anymore. It sounded prophetic. Inside the movement's meltdown in private chats leaked later. Influencers admitted they'd been offered hush money. One wrote, "They told me if I publicly supported Candace, I'd lose my brand deal. I said fine, then I lost it anyway." The betrayal narrative consumed the internet. Memes painted Candace as Saint Candace, patron of leakers. Even pop culture latched on. Rapper 50 Cent tweeted, "She took down the whole team like it was power. Damn, late-night comedians." Once her biggest critics were joking, Candace Owens accidentally did more for transparency than half of Congress. But through all the jokes and memes, there was a deeper undercurrent fear, because Candace still hadn't released the final upload. She'd ended her livestream by saying there was one more drop, one she called the mirror. Nobody knew what that meant. Some thought it was symbolic. Others whispered that she had dirt, not just on Turning Point, but on the entire media industrial network controlling both sides of the aisle. The speculation grew so wild that YouTube started auto-flagging videos using the term #TheMirrorRuble, the mirror re-upload, that only fueled the fire. Candace's return 2 weeks later. At exactly 11:11 p.m. on a Sunday night, Candace Owens returned. Her new video opened with static and then a phrase, glowing in white letters on a black background. White letters on a black background. The truth doesn't vanish. It reflects. Then Candace appeared, calm, direct, and utterly composed. "You've seen what they wanted you to see. Now I'll show you what they never wanted you to know. She reached for a folder. The camera zoomed in, and what she revealed next was far bigger than any feud inside that folder. According to her, were names, politicians, donors, influencers, and media executives, all allegedly tied to what she called the narrative syndicate. She didn't drop everything at once. Instead, she said, "This isn't about destruction. It's about awareness. It's time to stop worshiping personalities and start questioning systems." Her speech was calm, measured, not vengeful, but surgical. It wasn't a rant. It was a reckoning. "They called it a movement," she said softly. "But movements built on control eventually eat their own. I'm proof of that. And now, I'm done feeding it." The video ended with a chilling line. "Look closer. The reflection you fear is your own." Then the screen cut to black. The reactions were immediate. People were calling it the most important broadcast of her career, a modern manifesto on manipulation and control. Political analysts said she'd just redefined herself from commentator to cultural whistleblower, but others weren't so sure, because as the video hit 1 million views in minutes, a final message flashed on Candace's official site. A glitchy pop-up that simply read, "The Mirror upload, initializing," and beneath it, a countdown clock. 48 hours, the same number as before. And the question echoing across every platform was simple and terrifying. If Candace's first leak brought down the Kirks, what would her next one bring down? The countdown clock on Candace's site had been ticking for 48 hours straight, a silent, relentless heartbeat echoing through every corner of the internet. By the final hour, more than 20 million people were watching the numbers fall in real time. News channels streamed it live like a presidential address. YouTube, Rumble, and X were flooded with theories. Some said the countdown would drop the next batch of mirror files. Others believed Candace was about to vanish again, this time for good. At exactly 11:11 p.m., the countdown froze. The screen went black. Then, slowly, one line of text appeared in glowing white letters. "If you've made it this far, you deserve to see it. Pause." The chat feeds were going insane. Millions of viewers typing question marks and emojis. Waiting, then, Candace Owens appeared. This time, she wasn't in a studio. The lighting was dim, flickering slightly, as if she were broadcasting from a hotel room or safe house. Her tone was low, controlled, but her eyes told a different story. They were tired but focused, sharp, with purpose. "They thought I was finished," she began. "They thought they could bury me under leaks, threats, and silence. But what they don't understand is, I was never the message. I was the mirror." Her voice softened. "Everything I showed you, every file, every recording was never just about the Kirks. They were symptoms of something bigger. The system isn't conservative or liberal. It's manufactured truth. It's emotional engineering. And every one of us has been part of it." Then she clicked a button on her laptop. The screen behind her changed. Dozens of faces appeared. Screenshots of influential figures across media, politics, and entertainment. Left-wing, right-wing, mainstream, alternative, all connected by a web of arrows and encrypted file paths. At the top of the diagram, one glowing label, the network. Candace looked straight at the camera. "Every story you've argued about, every scandal that's divided this country, every movement that felt grassroots, it's been seeded, funded, and guided by this network. Both sides. All sides. One engine. One playbook." The live chat stopped scrolling. Millions of people froze, staring at their screens. "You think you're choosing what to believe?" she continued. "You're not. You're reacting exactly the way they want you to. Every algorithm, every trend, every fight, it's a test. And guess what? We've been failing it for years. Then came the twist that no one expected. Candace leaned closer to the camera. Her expression grave. You've all been asking who leaked the first call. Who recorded me? Who's been feeding the Patriot files? You've blamed Erika. You've blamed Charlie. But what if I told you? She paused. It wasn't them. The comments exploded again. Tens of thousands of viewers spamming who. Candace waited until the chat slowed down, then continued. Someone inside the system helped me. Someone you never suspect. Someone who was supposed to destroy me, but decided to destroy the system instead. She opened a new file, labeled the source. The screen flickered. A distorted voice played through her speakers, low, mechanical, but unmistakably real. We created influence. We thought it would unify people. But it became a weapon. When Candace started asking questions, they told me to erase her. Instead, I gave her everything. Then came the shocker. A series of digital signatures flashed briefly. At the bottom of the file, including an email address ending in @turningpointusa.org. The insider wasn't just real, they were still. Inside, you're watching history collapse in real time, Candace said. They'll tell you I'm a liar, that this is edited, fake, dangerous. Maybe they'll even call it treason. But when you see what's next, you'll realize the truth doesn't need a party, it just needs light. And then, she played one last clip. It wasn't a recording. It was live. Her laptop camera switched feeds, showing a blank office corridor, white walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and the unmistakable Turning Point USA logo in the background. You could hear muffled voices, hurried footsteps, and a woman shouting something off-screen. Then, through the grainy feed, a figure appeared. Short blonde hair, a headset, holding a phone. It was Erika Kirk. She was on the phone, her voice trembling. Yes, I know it's live. Shut it down. Shut it down now. The screen cut to static. Candace looked back at her viewers, her face illuminated by the light of the frozen image. They're watching me, she whispered. Right now. But it's too late. The uploads are decentralized. Even if they find me, they can't stop what's already spreading. And then her final words, you wanted to know who's really behind the curtain. Look at your reflection, because that's where the system lives, inside us. The mirror isn't mine anymore. It's yours. The feed cut to black. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then, as if triggered by her broadcast, every major social media platform glitched at once. Timelines froze. Feeds reloaded. And for a brief, eerie moment, every user's screen displayed the same white message. The mirror is live. The internet erupted into total panic. Twitter threads filled with screenshots. TikTok users filmed their phones showing the glitch. Reddit servers crashed under the weight of speculation. What did the mirror mean? Was it code? Was it malware? Or was it Candace's ultimate backup, the decentralized upload of every file, every recording, every piece of truth she'd uncovered? Experts were baffled. Cybersecurity firms released emergency statements claiming no known breach had occurred. Yet millions of users had witnessed the same anomaly at the same time. Within an hour, anonymous websites began appearing identical dark pages with a single phrase at the top. The truth doesn't vanish. IT replicates. Underneath were links, dozens of them, each leading to mirrored archives of the leaked documents. None of them traceable. None of them removable. Candace Owens had done it. She'd made her message immortal. And while the Kirks reportedly fled the country with insiders claiming they were under investigation and in hiding, Candace's presence became almost mythic. Some said she'd gone into protective custody. Others swore she was still broadcasting from encrypted networks, sending coded updates to her followers. But the strangest part came to days. Later, at 11:11 p.m. sharp, The same time as every major broadcast before smart devices across multiple countries began flickering. Smart TVs, phones, even car dashboards. The screens all displayed a faint reflection, the user's own face. Overlaid by a glowing line of text, "The mirror remembers." Then it disappeared. No one could explain it. No hacker group claimed responsibility. The government called it a synchronized software anomaly. But deep down, everyone knew better. Candace had warned them, the truth doesn't vanish. It reflects, and as the internet struggled to clean up the wreckage of what she'd unleashed, one question echoed across every platform, every podcast. Every whisper thread: had Candace Owens exposed the system, or had she become part of it? No one knew. But one thing was certain: the mirror was live. The world would never be the same again. And somewhere, in the dim glow of a private laptop screen, a new file began to upload. File name: the reflection _001. Status: initializing 001. Status: initializing